Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This video will teach you how to play the basics of the violin in 25 bite-sized lessons. These videos are for anyone who is completely new to the violin and music in general and want to learn how to play the violin in their own time without being overwhelmed with too much information. If you want to view these lessons in their original elongated form, you can access them by clicking the link under this video. This content is part of my 1 to 30 violin course, which guarantees to take you from a complete beginner to an accomplished violinist in just 30 lessons. All links can be found in the description bar underneath these videos. Now, not all of these lessons will be interactive. Some will just be explaining a particular technique or music theory, and an icon will appear on the screen to show you whether it will be interactive or a theoretical learning session. At the beginning of each video, information will pop up on the screen to tell you what equipment and PDF printouts you will require for that lesson. Everybody ready? Let's begin. Okay, so in lesson 8, we're going to tighten the bow because now we're going to start getting on to playing. Now, when you first got your bow and we were applying rosin to the bow, I just told you to tighten the bow, not too much. We don't want the hairs sort of flapping around too much because we won't be able to apply the rosin, but we just wanted them tight enough so that we could just play and we could just get some rosin on and test it. Now we're actually going to tighten the bow for real. The first thing I should probably mention is that if you loosen the end of the bow, and you completely take this out, which is fine, you haven't broken it, it comes out, what you will find is that the frog will come away from the actual stick or the actual wood of the bow. Again, that's completely normal, that's fine. What you don't want to do is twist it. So we don't want to have that come away by mistake. We're twisting it all around, and then when we twist it and put it back on again, we're tightening the bow, the hair's getting twisted, and then we're going to break the hair. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by tightening the bow. So the bow is completely loose at the moment. Now what you can see is that I do have a dip in the bow. So all bows will have a little bit of a dip in the wood. Now, that's what we're going to be aiming for when we're tightening the bow. So if I tighten the bow and I over tighten the bow. Now, a lot of people over tighten the bow because they think it's how it should be. So a lot of people will tighten the bow to the point where, hopefully you can see this, if I put the bow here, they'll tighten the bow to the point where the wood of the bow is absolutely poker straight and the hair is absolutely poker straight. And you've got the same width from the end here, in the middle, and here. Let me tighten it up a little bit more actually to show you. And people think that is how a bow should be tightened. It is not how a bow should be tightened. You can play that way, it won't do you any harm. All you're going to be doing is just stretching the hair a little bit too much for my comfort. But when you play on the violin, you'll find the bow will be very, very bouncy and it will be very out of control, and you'll just be struggling with a variety of things. So having the wood completely poker straight, having the hair completely poker straight, that's too tight. That isn't what we want. What we want to do is we want to loosen the bow. If I bring it up here, what we want to do is loosen the bow to the point where, I don't know if you can see that now, the middle of the bow is just starting to bend. So now I've got a little bit of a bend here. So at the end here, I can get my finger through there and I can wiggle it about a little bit. At the end here, I can also get my finger and wiggle it about. In the middle, if I try and push my finger through, there's a little bit of resistance and I'm actually lifting up the hair. Now, I'm not saying that your finger is the actual indication of that because everybody's got different thicknesses of fingers, but what we want is to have a little bit of a bend in here, in the middle of the bow. So the hair of the bow is poker straight, the wood has a bit of a bend in, and that's perfect. Now, if I loosen that off just a little bit more, if you think, oh, let's have a little bit more bend. Now, if I loosen that a little bit more, what I'm going to start to find now is that the hairs are just becoming a little bit too loose, and I don't want that. So what I would suggest that you do is when you tighten your bow, tighten it maybe just a little bit too much so there's less bend, so the bow is more straight, and then loosen it off so that you can adjust, or you can really see where that bend starts to come in, rather than doing it the other way. So rather than starting from complete scratch where the hair is just, the hair's all over the place, I can't play on that, the hair's too loose. Try not to touch the hair with your fingers. You have a lot of grease, oils and dirt, so try and refrain. If you notice I'm not touching my hair, try and refrain from touching the hair of the bow if you can. So if you're starting from scratch like this, you've already got a curve in the bow, but how do you know how far to take that curve before the bow is tight, before the hair is tight, the bow is tight? You know, how do you know? So the easiest way to do that, I find, to tell my students, is to tighten the bow a little bit too tight so that the wood of the bow looks too straight and the hair looks very straight. So everything is just poker straight. Then I tell them to just loosen it just a touch so that you just start to see that slight curve in the bow, and then the bow will be absolutely perfect. If you feel like there's just not enough curve in there, then you can loosen it off a little bit more. But remember, you'll eventually cross the threshold into making the hairs too loose. So now we've done this, we're going to move on to lesson 9, and we're going to learn where to play on the violin.